It was a little bit of a shock at the time, but I found out that the brand awareness for Xero was 3% and our direct competitor was 96%. The biggest sort of step change for a startup to a scale up, particularly for an owner, founder, etc., is letting go of control, trusting people to take on their dream and scale with it. You know, the market conditions are literally changing. For us to forecast where we think the business will be in 3 years is ridiculous. But I don't agree with the mandating of 2 days at home, because I think certainly it's different for every company, different, particularly small companies, particularly, certain types of industries. I just think that's ridiculous. And honestly, I don't even think they can mandate it. It's federal anyway.
Welcome to the Xweet Spot, the podcast where we cut through the noise and bring you real actionable insights to scale your business. From finance to branding, every episode is packed with tips from experts who've been in the trenches just like you. Our guest today is Penny Elmslie, who spent a decade shaping Xero's global brand and community strategy. She drove consistent growth, built XeroCon into what many call Coachella for accountants, and transitioned into a proxy CMO role, bringing marketing precision and leadership across technology and professional services. You can expect sharp, scalable insights. Penny, good morning and welcome to the Xweet Spot.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Good to have you here, Penny. So you've had this excellent, I would call it incredible almost, the journey you've had from Xero and now to Affinda as well. Could you tell a little bit more about that?
Thank you. I don't realize actually how lucky I am until I look back and go, wow, what a dream. I've had 17 years in tech, and I joined tech in 2002 or 3 or whatever. And it was early days. I remember my very first job, it was a software as a service, and I actually had to ask, what is SaaS? I didn't know. So I joined Xero in 2013, and at that point we were 50 people in Australia. We were a sort of a cheeky scale up from New Zealand, and I think we had about 50,000 customers in Australia. So I was the first marketing hire in Australia, and we were forming out the executive team. And honestly, people thought I was going to work for a photocopy company. That was my very first job, was to say, no, I don't work for Xerox, I work for Xero, an accounting software company. And so my job was to form out the marketing team. My job was to essentially, get people to know how to spell Xero and really sort of, start the movement. So I had a very small marketing team, and the very first thing I did was a brand survey just to go, well, where do we stand? And it was a little bit of a shock at the time, but I found out that the brand awareness for Xero was 3% and our direct competitor was 96%.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a wow moment for all of us, but it was actually a really important moment because we realised we've got a hill to climb, we've got a target, and, it's a David and Goliath battle. So that was the job, was to build up our brand awareness, and with that, obviously, customer acquisition. So 10 years at Xero, it was an amazing ride. We went from a company of 800, I think, globally to 5,000 when I left. It was pretty well 10 years to the day, and it was one of the best chapters of my career.
Excellent.
So I took a bit of a break, and then I really sort of thought about it. I thought, what do I want? What did I love most about that 10 years at Xero? And I really loved the scale-up stage. I loved those early days. I loved that David Goliath battle. So I went looking for that again, and fortunate to join Affinda at the beginning of this year.
Excellent. That's amazing. Just tell me a little bit more, right? So when you joined, you set up this brand survey and you found out the numbers, what they were back then. So what was running in your mind in terms of, where you are and where you want to get to? And what steps did you take to get it to where Xero is and, or it was when you left?
Yeah, look, I think when I joined Xero, it was a scale up. We had a really good product that people loved. And so that was the reason I, moved to Xero, because I literally got onto the forums, and when people were talking about how much they loved Xero, and they literally used the word loved, and then they were talking about how much they disliked the competition. And I was like, well, there's my in. I just need to amplify the love. And so I took that approach of just being incredibly human with the brand and build up the advocacy. And that was Xero's brand strategy, which we sort of formed out without quite realizing was advocacy at scale. We made our customers the heroes from day one. In fact, in the first 5 years, we never used a stock shot or a actor for any of our advertising. We only used real customers.
Excellent.
And we had a customer channel and we had a partner channel, partners being the accountants and bookkeepers. And they were also one of our biggest advocates. But we made their job easier, which made their job selling to their clients easier. So it was really championing the customers and the partners that's how we got there.
Okay. So for our listeners, right? So you mentioned that one of the things that you did was you made your customers and your channel partners the heroes. One of the ways were that you put them in your, stock photos and the creatives that you created. What else? How do you put them in that position where they become their long-term brand advocates?
Face-to-face was a really huge tactic for us, particularly with the partner channel. We literally would have, and I used to call it in the trenches. So we had our sales reps literally going out having introduction events at local RSL clubs and, very small, sometimes only 5 people would turn up. And that just grew and grew over the time. But we really did have to go out and put, feet on the ground. And the face-to-face events became sort of different levels. So it was these very small, 1-hour meetings. Then it became half-day education sessions. And then we turned it into this big thing called XeroCon, which was a 3-day conference. That was just for the partner channel. And we were able to do that because, we could talk directly to them and we created a community for them. But you can't go from 0 to 100. You've got to build up to that.
Sure. So early days, how many sales reps would you have or, consultants would you have going to these events?
We had probably 20 or 30 sales reps around the country.
Wow.
And they were dealing directly with the partners, as in the accountants and bookkeepers. Xero was really clear. We had a channel strategy where our partners, the accountants and bookkeepers, they were the connection to the small business owner. So we did focus on them wholly and solely for those first 5 years. We built a product for them. We built a product for their customers. We gave them the tools and the education so they could then be the heroes to their small business customers. Only after we established that partner channel and really owned it did we then move into start literally doing advertising, to the consumer. So it was very much a B2B play for the first 8 years. And now, everyone sees a billboard of Xero. But, B2C advertising is quite easy. B2B is hard and committed, and you really do need to be an authentic brand.
100%. And it's, for a SaaS product like Xero, it's always one-to-many relationship, whether it's B2B or B2C. So I think you guys did amazing there. I want to change the gears a little. Obviously, you went through a lot of roles at Xero, even before Xero and now at Affinda. What is the mindset shift you need and you needed back then when you were moving upwards to do what you do?
It's a good question because people go, oh, you've had, you're at Xero, this was an amazing big company. I'm like, yeah, but when I started, it wasn't. It was a small company. And I sort of joked going, I don't know if I'd get a job at Xero now. I don't think I would be, on their radar. But I had been in tech in a small company and I was, the marketing director and I had a team of 2, so very small. At Xero, when I joined, we had a pretty small team as well. It was like 6 or 7 marketers, if that. I then ended up managing teams of up to 50 and sort of, different sort of sizes and times. But what I learned repeatedly is embrace change. Like, cherish change, expect change, be good with change, because change is exciting. And, taking what I'd learned at each stage, but be quite happy to let some stuff go. The other thing I learned, particularly at Xero, was to be really comfortable to restructure the team every 18 months or so. As the business was growing so quickly, the roles, the remit, even the structure of the team just didn't make sense. And so be comfortable to flip it on its head and again and again. So hiring people who have that, growth mindset or change, embrace change is the first step.
So where'd you start with that? And I didn't know that Xero did that, and that's an amazing strategy. So I've got a lot of questions. So do you start with the people and their skills and capabilities and capacities and then create roles around them? Or do you create your ideal seats first and then you find someone to put that, person in that seat?
Look, I've learnt the hard way that you do probably need to do the latter. So the people that will get you to today might not get you to tomorrow. So there's a point where you go, you've either outgrown the business or this role has outgrown you. And look, people also, I really embrace people that, do a job and then go on to another role, whether it's within the company or, somewhere else. I mean, some of my greatest sort of success is when people in my team are now CMOs, all over the world. So I'm more than comfortable for people to move on. I think what I have learnt from experience is put the company first and the structure you need. And then if you can make that person work into that, if they've got a change mindset, fantastic. But square peg, round hole doesn't always work.
Okay, great. So we've recently come across this framework called the EOS. Within that, they talk about GWC, which is...
A lot of acronyms there.
Yes, that's right. They say when you're actually looking for someone, they call it the people analyzer, right? So they say either someone gets it, wants it, and has the capacity to do it, or they don't.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or it'll be one of the three.
Yeah.
So the follow-up question on what you said before is with small to medium enterprises, people are really struggling nowadays, especially in Australia, to find the right resources, number one.
Yeah.
And then if they do eventually find the right resource, to retain them, because big corporates can come about and just basically say, okay, you're getting 80K or 90K or whatever, and we'll give you 120 straight off the bat. And, you have a much structured perks and, all of that processes and all of those sort of things compared to where they are at the moment. So what is the strategy for small to medium enterprises? Where does that leave all of the SMEs?
Yeah, look, I mean, I knew this firsthand at Xero because we used to look at a lot of the data about small businesses and keeping and, recruiting and keeping talent was one of their biggest issues. Look, it's interesting. There are certain type of people who really excel in small business and others only can work in enterprise. So you sort of one or the other. And even though people might say they leave for money, yes, obviously there's, market factors, but I think a lot of people, if the role is not growing with them or if the company, can't sort of match where they need to go, sometimes it's okay to let them go. But what I've learned, and I have this thing I call the capability matrix, is play to your strengths. So once you get your people, once you get your team, you should always be operating on 80 to 90%. There should, hopefully be that 10% buffer, but you want to be pushing the whole time. And once you really identify what their strengths are, lean into the strength. Let them actually be the hero in that sort of area. Put them front and center in the strength. I mean, in the team. And then match them up with people who don't have their strengths. I would literally have a circle and I'd map my people and I'd be like, well, they're analytical and detailed and they're big picture and they're a driver. Let's match them up so they complement each other. And that's where the magic happened. If you try and force them into a different area, they'll do it, especially if they're, good, hard workers. But it might not be sustainable and certainly it might not be something that they want to build their career that way.
That's very interesting. So tell me a little bit more about the capability matrix that you were talking about. How does it work?
Yeah, look, I hacked around it, but it's essentially based on the DISC profile. So, D, I think they were decisive, A, I was inclusive, S, supportive, whatever. But you could sort of tell what people are. So I would map, I'd start with the team I had or the structure of the team I had, and I would match them based on either surveys we did, instinct. Most managers have got a pretty good EQ. We can read our people, obviously conversations, and I would literally match them in one of those quadrants. And then depending on the project, I would often say, well, we need this sort of person, a driver to lead that project, but they really do need an analytical person or someone who's into the detail. So then I would match them up with the opposite or the complementary skill. And I learnt over time that as my team was evolving, we were getting bigger or people were coming or going, sometimes it would overcorrect. And I'm probably a D. I'm a DS where I'm a driver. I'm like to, collaborate, etc. And the risk was trying to hire people just like me because, I was attracted to them. But what I learnt was you want all the mix of people in your team because they all bring something to the table, and letting them shine in their area is, when the magic happens.
So with small to medium enterprises, what strategy would they put in place where, let's say, for example, they found the people that they need in the team. They've got a team of, let's say, 10, 12 people. And suddenly they realize that the team is actually running the business. So there is a risk. So if someone leaves, who would fill that role, sort of thing. And I'm saying this because a lot of businesses struggle with letting go. Business owners, I should say, they struggle with letting go because they're wary of the fact that if they make the team run the entire story and if they leave, their business will be in trouble. So what do you think about that?
Well, I think you're actually doing something right. I mean, the biggest sort of step change for a startup to a scale up, particularly for an owner, founder, etc., is letting go of control, trusting people to take on their dream and scale with it. So I think if you've hired A players, they should do whatever you've hired them for. They should be experts in that area and be quite comfortable that they can do it better than you. The job, particularly of a leader, is to be more like a conductor, is to sort of, be across everything. Yes, there are areas, usually they've started that business because they're an expert in that business, that's their service or product, but you need to hire people around you to bring it to market or to build it or whatever you've decided. And so it is actually letting your people do the job you've hired them to do. I think probably the biggest gap between startup and scale up is structure, giving them enough structure so they understand the strategy, so they understand where their job fits in, so they understand about, the objectives, OKRs or whatever you want to call it, so that you tie back into what you're doing or your role is and what you're delivering that will deliver the business strategy. That's what a good leader does, is they literally set it up and let their people run with it.
Excellent. You mentioned OKRs.
Yeah.
We call them KPIs here.
Yeah.
What is the most, I'd say, ideal time period or frequency to have KPI reviews, like a proper sit down?
Big debate on this, and I've seen good and bad. I would say you have an annual. Well, actually, it's interesting. Even in Affinda, we don't even have 12-month planning anymore because AI is moving so fast, and the market conditions are literally changing. For us to forecast where we think the business will be in 3 years is ridiculous. So we think about it in 1 year sort of sprints, and then we think about 6-month or rolling 6-month planning. So I build out a 6-month plan based on the company 1 year strategy. And then I'm very comfortable to call that a living plan because every quarter I'm constantly sort of adjusting, prioritizing projects that either need to come on or come off, etc. There are some things, particularly in marketing, that I know I need to do this quarter because in 2 quarters, we need to deliver that. So there's a certain sort of staged approach. But I would say you'd need to consider them every quarter. But honestly, as a marketing leader, I'm literally looking at them every month. But I'm saying to the team, our sprint or our OKR, whatever you want, everyone has a different variation of what an OKR or KPI is, but whatever your objective is, do it by the quarter, but be comfortable to just be, tweaking it as you go through quarter to quarter. The risk, I think, sometimes is that people run to the end of the quarter and they don't think about the next quarter. So they're literally like, oh, okay, well, July 1, June 30, I don't know what's happening on July 1 because I've just been thinking about that last quarter. So that's where the rolling, monthly review comes in.
Excellent. Okay. So you talked about AI. You talked about Affinda.
Yeah.
People say that building software will become so cheap and so quick and easy that having 20 subscriptions to run your business will no longer be needed. Businesses will just create their micro programs within the business itself. They are more customized. It doesn't cost too much to run. There's no ongoing subscription. They can tweak it as you go. People are saying that's the end of SaaS. What do you think about that?
Look, no doubt about it, SaaS has been disrupted, just like SaaS disrupted the market 20 years ago. So it's just the next evolution. I think SaaS is now becoming more of a service. So it's really around how, solving a solution, not necessarily here's a tool to do a job. So I think that's the distinction between someone who's making it in their back room versus a company that's really built their chops around it. The other thing about SaaS, no doubt about it, they need to change. They're calling it AI native SaaS. As you can see, Xero's doing that. But really, they need to deliver a solution that people trust, that the data is protected and secure. That's just, the absolute pinnacle. And they need to have a strong brand, which ties back into trust. And that customer experience has to be extremely good because we know now, as you say, you can build a product overnight and you can, literally deliver it. But is it secure? Is someone going to help you use that service? Is it going to really solve your problem or just your immediate need?
So it's no longer software as a service, it's software and a service.
Yeah, it's actually a good way of thinking about it. Yeah.
Good stuff. All right. So you mentioned that, business owners will basically not subscribe to softwares. They're subscribing to a service that comes along with that software.
Yeah.
So how does the businesses that are probably now subscribed to the service, what can they expect? Are they, because people are looking for immediate gratification, right? Yeah. With the e-commerce, products are getting delivered the same day. It used to be 2 weeks, right? Or 3 weeks. So for the people who are consumers of these SaaS platforms, what can they expect?
Gosh, well, we know everything's literally, the curve is, you can't even map the curve at the moment because it's every 3 months, it's literally just going up. It's probably the same mentality that's always been there. Is like at the moment, there's so much hype. There's so much noise. You get on at LinkedIn at the moment and it's just everyone just shouting at you and, claiming that they're the next Messiah. Like anything, it's honestly pick your tool or your suite and commit to it because literally it's just evolving every second. I feel like we've had this massive sprint and it's about to calm down a little bit because they're all paying catch up and a lot of the big guys are buying each other, etc. And there's going to be some amazing ones like Lovable and stuff that are just dropping, that are just, amazing. So there's always going to be these breakout stars, but I do think the hype will die down when people commit to a tool. And it's how you use, and I know I've just said it's more than a tool now, but it's how you use that tool in your everyday life is how you'll end up applying it to your workplace. So the advice that someone gave me, which I thought was brilliant, was start using ChatGPT in your everyday life. Like take a photo of your fridge and say, what should I eat for dinner? What's in the fridge? or, literally write me down a shopping list based on this receipt and based on my diet or something. If you start using it in a practical way, then all of a sudden you go, I'm not scared of this. I understand how to use this. Now I understand how to apply it into my workplace. I think of particularly AI around agents as just an extension of my team. So wherever there's an automated task a manual task that I can automate, I would get an AI agent to, I build an AI agent for that rather than actually hire someone or go out and look for a tool to do it. So that's because I've chosen my platform, which is ChatGPT.
Excellent. So I know all the big guys, they're trying to work around and removing all of these little bugs. There's AI hallucination, for example. But if you talk about, let's say, lawyers and consultants, advisors, business coaches, a lot of these businesses would think that they're in danger because they might not exist, because you can just put everything to, ChatGPT and say, can you analyze this for this, and, it spits out pretty accurate results and recommendations. So where do you think that service industry, which is, I'd say in Australia, I think it's about 70% of the GDP, so where do you think that's going, and how does it affect the overall economy in Australia? So like you mentioned, there's already disruption, right?
Yeah, it's massive. And look, I remember living through this with cloud. And particularly we were focused on accountants and bookkeepers there, but they were like, you're going to do me out of a job. This cloud accounting thing means that I can't do the job that I used to do. And of course, there's a level of fear because it's change. And of course, there's a level of, things are, the workforce is going to change, no doubt about it. But what I learned from that is if you not so much embrace change, but if you understand it and you adjust to it, you can actually really benefit from it. So I'd say for a service industry, think about your admin. All of a sudden you have a superpower of you can do things faster, more productive, etc. Obviously, but the expectation of your customer is you also need to be a lot more accessible. So traditionally, you would have had to, 9 to 5 would have been your expectations of your service level. Honestly, now it has to be always on, and you've got to think of a way to automate that to be an always on provider. So I think that is the distinction now between service is think about the new customer expectation and adjust your service for that with the tools that are now available to you. And they are a superpower if you choose to use them.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff. So do you think with the way the government policy is in Australia at the moment, they're even going for, I think, mandatory 2 days work from home and things like that. So do you think we are going in a direction where because we're becoming more efficient, now we can deliver more in a shorter period of time and have more sort of work-life balance? Or do you think that now is the time for us to really have all the hands on the deck and government needs to support longer hours or, adoption to AI, because we are essentially going through a learning curve and we don't want to be left behind where the world is going to where Australia is?
Gosh, that's a big question. I think hybrid is the way to go, but I don't agree with the mandating of 2 days at home because I think certainly it's different for every company, different, particularly small companies, particularly, certain types of industries. I just think that's ridiculous. And honestly, I don't even think they can mandate it. It's federal anyway. Definitely, I think people are feeling, it's a disrupted market as well. And you can see that particularly in tech, there's lots of redundancies and things like that. So people are nervous about their jobs. I don't think the answer is to work harder. I think it's to work smarter. At Affinda, we use the line of we combine the best of artificial and human intelligence. And we purposely say human intelligence as the end because artificial on its own is not useful. Human on its own is good, but it can be better if you combine them. So I want people to have better work, to not do the grunt work, to be able to do more meaningful work. That's what I'm interested in. But I do think there's this sort of fundamental shift in how we work. So look, I think probably it's going to be a bit of a rocky road for the next, honestly, year, 2 years where people adjust. And I think the universities need to adjust as well because they are training the next generation. And I get a little bit nervous about grads coming out because are those traditional grad roles still relevant in the service industry? Maybe not. But on the flip side at Affinda, we've got 3 or 4 grads that are working on incredible projects that, 10 years ago, they would have been in the back room crunching numbers. Now they're actually doing meaningful work. So I think that's a shift in how our organisations and probably small businesses can actually attract and keep good talent because they can give them access to things that they wouldn't get if they were, working in a big company.
We've been talking about AI for a bit now, and AI agents are absolutely everywhere, right? We talked about how to go through that adoption cycle and make them a part of the daily sort of routine. And for the small business, if you were to give an advice on scaling their business consistently and sustainably, how would they use AI, number one? Or if you got any other advice where you would say you have to do that right now, especially in this tough economy?
Yeah. Look, I would say this regardless of the time, the market conditions with AI is to focus. So I particularly with startup to scale up is, and it's not a tech term by all, but like a startup is like you are forming out an idea, you're working out do people want to buy this product or service? How do I price it? How does it look? All those sorts of things.
Whether the dog eats the dog food.
Exactly. It's so simple. So that's sort of like, is this viable? When you move into scale up, it's like you've proven out the product, you've proven you've got an addressable market, the TAM, you've proven you sort of have a bit of a sense of who's going to buy your dog food or whatever. You just have to go hard and focus. I think that's probably the biggest distraction for scale-ups is they see so many opportunities and they want to go everywhere. You have to commit and you have to just go hard. And sometimes it's hard because you're leaving things on the side that you desperately to get to, but back yourself in and go hard.
You mentioned people management is probably a superpower.
Yes.
What are some of the advices to, I'd say, drive the entire team with you and align the entire team to that one focus that you were talking about before?
Yeah, look, I think it's a combination of structure and style. So I've always been really transparent with the business strategy, the good and the bad. I've made it clear how I've tied in the plans that tie back to their jobs. So I've even had games where we've literally played match, what project does that match up to that business priority, just to get everyone really connected back into why you're doing that job or why you're doing that project. So that's how I use structure and planning to align people. I certainly have an approach where, as I said, I play to people's strengths, but I really embrace everyone's different strengths. So I champion different people, and I put the spotlight on people. So I use, we use Slack at Affinda. Everywhere I've used Slack. So I'll do shout outs, I'll do celebrations, little things like that. I don't go overboard, but I certainly just genuine. The other thing I'd say is, if you hire people that align to your values and the company values, you're halfway home. You sometimes, and I've seen this in a few times, you hire people that they could do the job, but they're not aligned to the values, or there is a bit of a misstep in what they want versus what you want. Use that interview process to really interrogate what drives them. Be really comfortable to say, although they can do the job, at the very last pass, be okay to say, I don't think this is right. Because hiring talent is expensive, it's time consuming, onboarding them is a 6-month job. Then losing them after 6 months for both good and bad reasons is really expensive for a small business. You can't afford that. So take the time to hire the right people. Once you hire the right people that align to your values and they're clear about what their job is, bring them into the fold. Be transparent, good and bad. Take that ownership mentality with them. Give them, shares in your company. that goes a long way.
Yeah, Penny, you've been amazing. Thank you very much for all the knowledge and all the experiences you shared with us today. And I'm sure our listeners will love it.
Oh, thank you. I really enjoyed it. Love to talk a story.
We'll mention Penny's LinkedIn profile in the notes and comments section. There is so much we can all learn from her. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to the Xweet Spot for more insights from top business leaders. Until next time, keep leading with confidence and stay true to your values. Thanks for listening and watching.